The topic of bullying is very difficult. On one hand, you have the utopian or ideal that nobody should be bullied. Shouldn't be bullied whatsoever. It's a bad thing, because clearly it's not nice. Part of me can agree with that. In fact, every emotional part of me can agree with that, which is a very important distinction, because that's what you want to judge my opinion on. My opinion. Having said that, there is the other side, which is in fact the conflict scenario, in which is very clear to see that we do in fact grow from. The conflict scenario, or conflict, is something that we grow from, that we become stronger in. For example, a child who is given everything throughout their childhood is less likely to gain a sense of resourcefulness. This is not a prejudgment. There are factors and scenarios and such within that might change this from being so, such as what these acquisitions are. But in general, I dare to say that those who are rich, as an example, tend to have an easier way of finding things that they want and or acquiring them. When this happens, something very interesting occurs. They don't have a need to look for something. And that's just how it is when you have human learning. If you have no need or desire to go out and search for something in order to better yourself, then you will in fact not go out and look for it. To simplify it even more, at the risk of sounding condescending, which doesn't matter, imagine being hungry. If you are not hungry, you are less likely to go to the kitchen and try to find something to eat. If you have nothing in that kitchen, you are more likely to come up with some clever concoction of things that you have in order to sustain yourself and not starve to death. Hey, I found ramen in the back. Is it still good? This can of soup? I don't know. Doesn't matter. The point is you become more resourceful in a demanding situation such as that. However, if you have everything, then you are unlikely to seek something, and then of course learn something, and then commit it to memory. Hence the bullying, which is much the same thing, but there is a critical distinction. And that is the cyberculture. Bullying is something that has been around forever, I dare say. Since you introduced the concept of the alpha male, alpha female, and the very idea of sexual contest, for example. Bullying is going to be around because you want to disqualify the other person. You also want to be on the side of the victor, which is going to present that complexity of sorts. But what this is going to end up doing is teaching somebody how to deal with conflict. Now, granted, there are some children in today's society, or perhaps I should say more noticed children in today's society, that become overwhelmingly depressed. However, there is also the idea of the gender divide. Once upon a time, even more so today, men and boys were more expected to carry on the masculine role, which includes not bitching about your feelings. Interesting. Today, however, there has been sort of a migration to a more feminizing of our males in such a way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense that they've become more expressive because they believe it to be a progressive idea, which is both true and right, true and correct, but not necessarily right. You can choose the personality you would like to be in, but the fact is the gender divide is going to include certain things in which the sexes will migrate to at an instinctual level, which is very important to understand. It's important because that which we are attracted to is in fact the rudimentary features of each sex as they are. Should a woman suddenly decide that breasts were uncool, are we going to expect society to say, well, I guess they don't need to be attractive anymore? I'm not making a joke. I'm trying to parody this example, because all of society and its development has something to do with the social interaction. If you disagree with that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be so bold as to say that you are an idiot. Because social interaction and development has to do with society, which means interacting with people. Part of interacting with people is, in fact, competing for the sexes. In sex, specifically. Big part of it. Big part of it. In fact, if you look at the very nature of the competition between teenagers in high school, they're not necessarily competing with other males or other females. They're competing for the attention of the opposite sex and gaining attention therein of popularity according to what kind of attention they may or are getting. I hope that makes sense, because I'm not sure where I am right now. Having said that, when it comes to bullying, being able to compete within that system is very important. Otherwise, when you get to a certain age, you are going to expect things that are unexpected. I should say, you are going to expect things which no one else would expect of themselves, or lesser as so, or would expect more from somebody else and not you. Breaking that down, it is very simple. If you run and tell your boss because somebody called you a name, you are going to be socially labeled because they are going to fear interacting with you for what you might say, because you have associated yourself with an outside group. This kind of thing happens all the time. You have to be able to take these punches. However, here is the distinction. When it comes to cyberculture and bullying online, this is a very remote, non-personal attack. You are doing it through a computer, which eliminates that sort of ability to defend yourself, that personal nature, somebody else to say something. I was, in fact, one of those kids that was bullied, in fact, by a girl in school. Couple of boys, too, but we ended up being friends. It's a very weird fucking thing. That's it. I could teach you how to do it. If you're being bullied in school, my technique, which may or may not work for you, is I was the brain. I ended up teaching them that I could do shit for them, to other people, or teach them how to do things to other people that weren't necessarily permanently damaging, but humiliating, and so they thought I was the cool shit. when I was in 7th grade, I could hack the computers. Well, I really wouldn't call it hacking. I was just one of the... Well, I was the one kid that knew that the networks were not protected and you could just go up one level and then go on the teacher's drive and change the grades. They somehow didn't know what encryption was back then. I'm not even kidding. Things like this. You adapt to the situation, you become stronger yourself, you learn how to make friends with people you don't like. Cyberculture, however, it is remote. There is less you can do because you can in fact hit that ignore button and just fly shit at them whenever you want. In any scenario. Well, I think that I covered everything that I need to. I hope it was informative, if not messy, and mildly interesting, and I hope you're not asleep. Thanks for watching.